Great. Any other questions out there?
Well, I don't want to jump over for her, but I was wondering, because of the two things that you guys stated and the nature of this debate tonight, if you would spend a little bit of time maybe debating each other's view of what the Bible's purpose is.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, they're gonna.
You want to do just a couple-minute response for each?
Yeah, just a couple-minute response of each other's views of what the purpose of the Bible is.
Sure.
Quick debate, mini debate.
Mini debate. Okay. Let me do this then as best I can in a phrase of a question. Do you think that it's possible that the Bible was used in at least some way to control people?
Good. Is that the end of your statement, or are we kind of going back and forth?
I was thinking back and forth.
Okay. Do I think that it was used to control people?
In any way at some point?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I believe some people were controlled by it, sure.
So do you think that there is any possible way that some of it could have been written for that purpose?
For the purpose? Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, I guess then there's no really disagreement, I think.
Let me qualify that then.
Okay.
The purpose in writing it to control a group of people, certain aspects of that, first of all, I believe that God wrote it, and that He was the one seeking to control His people. For example, Israel. He gave them the law. If you look through the first 5 books of the Bible, there's a lot of rules that they got to keep in there. Mm-hmm. And so I think that He was trying to control His people Israel for His purposes, and His purposes stated continuously throughout the Bible are for His own glory. And so He has sought to control Israel in such a way that He has said basically, if you follow my commands, I'll bless you. Nations will look at you and see that you're blessed, and they'll want to know me because of it, and because of it I get more glory. If you don't obey my commands, then I punish you, you get captured and sent off to Babylon more than once, and that's that. So I believe that, yes, it was written to control people, and it accomplishes that, but I believe that it was written by God to control His people Israel, and ultimately Christians in relating to us how we should live our lives.
I mean, do you think there's any problem between that and free will?
No.
It's another debate for another time. It's really a controversial subject among Christians. Just to be honest, I believe that man was created with a free agency, and that he gets to. When I act, I am not forced to act in any way, shape, or form contrary to how I want to act. But by the same token, I would affirm what is stated in the Westminster Confession of Faith and the 1689 London Baptist Confession of Faith, that God has ordained all things whatsoever that come to pass. And so, in that way, God has stated that whatever comes to pass, I'm going to end up doing. So, it's, again, another debate for another time, but I don't think there's, in theology, there's an idea called compatibilism, which I think is perfectly a biblical idea, and I don't think free will is hindered at that point in any way, shape, or form.
I didn't mean stray off the original subject.
No, absolutely.
That came to mind right away.
And so my response then, obviously we're functioning on fundamentally different presuppositions here. We have completely different ideas of why the Bible is written. And so my assertion for my side would just be that I think the Bible was written to communicate that history of the work of redemption. And in doing that, God has obviously accomplished what He has wanted to do through His people. And yeah, I see no discrepancy in between the two. So,
could it be that this was simply a people's way of relating history as it was taught to them, and that there are parts of it that may not have been written by God?
Obviously, that goes against my opening statement. I believe the Bible in the original autographs is inspired, inerrant, infallible, the Word of God, and I don't believe that there are any contradictions or falsehoods or anything like that in those original autographs. So,
all right. Any other questions?
You said earlier that him being atheist, he sees these contradictions because he doesn't want to believe the Bible. Do you think that would go for you too? You disregard any obvious contradictions because you've been taught to believe it so well?
I would say, first of all, that I've been an atheist for the majority of my life. I did not grow up in a Christian home, and I actually 2 years ago became a Christian. And so I wasn't necessarily taught to believe what the Bible has to say. But I would also say that I take my position that He is suppressing the truth and unrighteousness because that's what the Bible teaches. Now, for me, I would say, obviously, in my closing statement, I stated that my worldview requires me to interpret apparent contradictions in the Bible as false in the one seeing the contradiction. It requires it because I fundamentally state that the Bible has no contradictions in it, and I have to because of my stance. So I would say absolutely, you throw anything at me where you say that this is a contradiction, if it's very apparent and obvious, it may look like to you that I'm doing intellectual or literary gymnastics in order to try to get around it. But I don't blush at that fact. This is a fundamental presupposition of the Christian faith. I think examined under very close scrutiny, the Bible holds up to even the most staunch attacks. And but I don't hide that fact, absolutely. If someone says that my fundamental presupposition is that there are no errors or contradictions in the Bible, and if someone brings one up to me that they think is, I have to immediately say that this is an apparent contradiction and seek to resolve it. Now, I think tonight that I have shown that these contradictions can be resolved with just examining many of these things in context, looking at the original languages, understanding textual criticism and things like that. But I don't blush at that fact at all.
So Tanner mentioned he had a presupposition. Do you think you have one too?
In reading the Bible, like I said, it's like I don't go through expecting to learn anything. I go through it and I read it because I'm curious about it, and I go through and I read it because I want to be familiar with it. I think that probably I go into it with that bias that I'm not going to feel anything different than what I have. It's fun. There's a lot of neat stories in here. But, I mean, I guess the short answer would be yes, that I do go into it automatically with that feeling. And, I mean, I never really read this book trying to pick out contradictions. That was just something that kind of came up, I guess, as I was going along. And I was like, well, that doesn't really make sense to me, personally. And so... but I did. I don't think I ever read this believing that it was true. So that could have been a problem with that. So,
and I'm glad my opponent would take that stance. I believe firmly that we're both biased, and it's a point of trying to reconcile that. To first of all recognize each of our biases, and then try to come to a mutual agreement to where we can discuss these things in as objective a fashion as possible.
All right.
So.
Great. Any other questions? All right. That concludes our debates. Does the Bible have contradictions? And I never introduced myself, so I'm John Fortenberry, the moderator. And that's it. Thanks for debating. Thanks, audience, for showing up.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
You too.
Yeah.